Chaf Gimel, the 23rd of Tamuz. And we are on page Reish Chaf Zayin in ויולך es hayam, Samech Vov, Reish Chaf Zayin, the line that starts הרי כל זה הוא בחינת שינוי. This is in the main paragraph, the line under והן מצד הרצון. הרי כל זה כף זין הוא בחינת שינוי. And that's what let's bring us back a little bit. So we basically concluded the reservations that Hasidus has regarding the view of the early Mekubalim and the Rameh of Keser and Ein Sof as Keser, as they view Keser and Ratzon, which is Ein Sof and Kadmon, and Hasidus does not agree with that. And then last week, we began with some reservations, and even though the Hasidus prefers the Shita of the Ramak, that only Atzmus is real Ein Sof and real Kadmon, and nothing else, not even Keser and Ratzon is Kadmon and is real Ein Sof the way we defined Ein Sof, and Lotchila as well. So that Hasidus agrees with, but beginning from last week, the Rebbe Rashab is presenting the reservations that we have regarding the Shita of the Ramak himself. And the first one that was represented last week and even before is the Lo Shanisi Inyan. That even though the Ramak says that the creation is done through Soibev Kol Almin, and he identifies between Atzmus and Soibev Kol Almin, which we don't, we separate between them. In any case, he claims that the creation is done lo bederech islapshus, not in a manner of being invested, rather in a manner of makif, in a manner of soivev, in a manner of indirect creation. And the Rebbe says, okay, that makes it maybe less severe, than the way to view Memale, which when the divine energy is invested in creation. And the Ramak says, well, Memale is only Ara, so don't worry about that. But really Soivev, okay, no, it's not in being invested, and therefore not being changed. And the Rebbe objected it and said, well, it's still a change. Number one, there is a difference between and before and after worlds exist. From two aspects. One is that when world exists, it's not the same like when world doesn't. Then Hashem is involved with the world, Hashem is communicating or not with the world. That is a shinui. Before the world existed, and now it's not. The other way around. Before not, and now exists. And the second thing is Ratzon. If it's all Atzmus, then the Zohar says that before the world was created, then there was a stage of Alos HaRatzon. Allah b'yotzoinu ha'pashut. It came up in Hashem's Ratzon. So if we are talking in Atzmus, so in Atzmus came up a new Ratzon. So how is that? How is that Ein Sof? And how is that not Lo Shanisi? if there is a new ratzon in Atmuz, then there's a shinu in Atmuz. There's a change. So this is the first objection. The Ramak has an issue with Ani Havai Lo Shanisi because he says everything is created by Atmuz itself. So we say, wait, what about Lo Shanisi? So we're indirect. Okay, indirect, but still he is the cause. And it makes a difference for him. Okay, that was one thing. So we are now in that line, the end of it. וגם אי אפשר לומר, at the end of this line. וגם, now the Rebbe presents another issue with the Ramak's view. So the Ramak's view is that you can call nothing Ein Sof. There's nothing you can call Ein Sof except for Atzmus. With that, Hasidus has reservation about that. Why? וגם, also, אי אפשר לומר שלא יש מציאוס הנקרא אור אין סוף זולס מציאוס העצמוס. You cannot say that there is no such existence as Or Ein Sof, and only Atzmus exists. That's what the Ramak says. There's no such thing as Or Ein Sof. And if you remember, when we define what does it mean when the Zohar says Or Ein Sof, we said not only that it's Or of Ein Sof, or of from the infinite, from Ein Sof, but the Or itself is Ein Sof. The Ramak doesn't agree with that. The Ramak thinks that when a Zohar says Or Ein Sof, listen, the Zohar is truth. So anything the Zohar says is Torah. So now how do we understand this Torah? Okay, so the Ramak says, well, when the Zohar says Or Ein Sof, he means Or Shel Ein Sof, the light of Ein Sof, the light that belongs to the Ein Sof, but not that the light is Ein Sof. And Hasidus, the Arizal says, and the Hasidus follows and says, that the Or itself is Or Ein Sof, that the Or is Ein Sof. The Ramak says, no, only Atzmus is Ein Sof. Hasidus will now differentiate. You will see that Hasid will now the Rebbe is will present few reservations regarding the Shita of the Ramak, and that will lead us into the view of Hasidus. And the next Maimar is basically all about the view of Hasidus regarding creation and Or Ein Sof. But Hasidus will separate between Ein Sof and Kadmon. That there could be something which is Ein Sof, like the Or, but it's not Kadmon, because it has a source, has a beginning. Yet it always existed, as we learned before. In any case, now that I confused you enough, so let's read again. וגם also אי אפשר לומר, you cannot say שלא יש מציאוס הנקרא אור אין סוף זולת מציאוס העצמוס, that there is nothing that you can call אור אין סוף except for, meaning the emphasis here is on אין סוף, זולת מציאוס העצמוס, except עצמוס. Why? You have a problem with it. Why? דהרי מכל מקום, nevertheless, and in any case, and you have to relate to it, which you don't, says the Rebbe to the Ramak, so to speak. Amar bepirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, as we already were introduced to Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, that says in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, עד שלא נברא העולם היה הוא ושמו לבד. Or בלבד, sometimes you see לבד, sometimes you see בלבד. That until the world was created, there was only him, God, ושמו, and his name alone. This is what Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says. That's Torah. הרי אמר גם כן בחינת שמו. Then before creation, there wasn't only God, there was his name, Shmo. So according to the Mekubalim make delicacies out of it. And they say, of course, this is a support to our Shita that Shmo means Keser. And Keser is also Kadmon and Ein Sof, like Atzmus itself. But according to the Ramak, so they have no problem with Shmo, Adrabah. Shmo supports their opinion. Not only that, the gematria of Shmo is also the gematria of Ratzon. But according to the Ramak, there is no aspect of Ein Sof but Atzmus. So the Rebbe is asking, what about Shmo? So according to your view, he's asking the Ramak that is only Atzmus, what is Shmo? That is not part of creation. It's before creation. And you cannot say that this is one thing. You cannot say, the Rebbe says, that it's like Shmo and him is one thing. No, I will bring you psukim that from Torah that will indicate that these are two separate things. There is you and there is your name. There is God and there is his name. And here we go. Uksiv, I'll bring you proofs. Ani Havaye hu Shmi. That means, Vaperush, that Shem Havaye hu rak b'chinat Shmo. There's Ani and there's Havaye, which is Shmi, is my name, says Hashem. So there is Hashem and his name Havaye. Aval hu atzmo, but he himself, למעלה מבחינת שמו, higher than his name. God himself is higher than his name. וזה שכתוב, בכל יום אברכך והללה שמך. As we say in davening, בכל יום אברכך והללה שמך לעולם ועד, right? In Ashrei. So every day I bless you and I praise your name. So there's you and there's your name. And he says, לך טוב להודוס ולשמך נאה לזמר. To you it's so good to give thanks, and to your name it's very appropriate to praise and to sing songs of praise. So we see, says the Rebbe to the Ramak, that you cannot say, well, Shimcha, your name, one thing. No, it is no one thing, there are two things. So if this is the case, the question comes back, what is Shmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is together with the Asmus of Hashem before the world was created? So here is the second question, the reservation, a question of the Rebbe Rashab on the Ramak. That your view is missing. It is missing the Shmo and indicating what Shmo is. Then there is another reservation and question on the Ramak, which came later because the Ramak was not aware of the Tzimtzum. The Arizal came after the Ramak. And the Arizal was Mechadesh the Inyan of Tzimtzum. So the Ramak didn't know, but we know. And therefore, and the way the Arizal describes the Tzimtzum is וכן לפי מה שכתוב בעץ חיים. What it says in Eitz Chaim of Reb Chaim Vital, the Talmud of the Arizal, עניין הצמצום, the whole subject of the צמצום, שהיה באור אין סוף, that took place in אור אין סוף, in the infinite light of God. So it says in Eitz Chaim, that when עלה ברצונו של הקדוש ברוך הוא, when it came up in the ratzon of Hashem, in the will of Hashem to create worlds, to be a king. and therefore to create worlds. Then the Arizal says, the Chaim Vital, Etz Chaim, Or Ein Sof Memale Es Kol Mekom HaChalal. So the Arizal says there was Or Ein Sof filling the entire space. Velo היה מקום לעמידס oilamos. And there was no room. I'm not reading here, I'm reading what he says in Etz Chaim. ולא היה מקום לעמידס oilamos. And there was no room for existence of worlds, says the Arizal. And therefore, what happened? צמצום, סילק אורו הגדול על הצד. Reb Chaim Vital quotes the Arizal and says that Hashem removed his great light to the sides, ונעשה חלל ומקום פנוי לעמידס העולמות. And then a space and a vacant space was created for the existence of the worlds. So the way now we understand the inyan of Tzimtzum, and that through the process of Tzimtzum, how the world was created, through the Kav and so on. Read inside, לא ייתכן כלל כל זה לומר בעצמוס ממש. This whole description of the Arizal of the Tzimtzum, you cannot say that it happened in Atzmus, because לא שניסי. וכמו שכתוב בתורה אור, דיבור המשכיל פתח אליהו. As it says in Torah Or, in דיבור המשכיל פתח אליהו. So according to the Shita of the Ramak, that Ein Sof is only Atzmus of Hashem, you have to say that the Tzimtzum occurred in Atzmus. And this is impossible. Because the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah Or that the Tzimtzum took place ba'or and not b'ma'or. The Tzimtzum took place in the light, not in the luminary. Why? Because the process of Tzimtzum applies only in a reality that in which there is a gilui, there is a revelation, and you can either block it or compromise it or filter it, whatever it is, to metzamtzem it. But there has to be the inyan of gilui and helem. But the Atzmus of Hashem is, first of all, the Atzmus of Hashem is higher than Helem and Gilui altogether, than revealed and concealed. The Atzmus of Hashem is not subjected to these terms at all. And it's not shayach. You can't create a tzimtzum in Atzmus. And even after, as we know already, we mentioned a few times, that even after the Tzimtzum, Hamar hu bisgalus, as the Alter Rebbe says. The source, the Maor, is revealed after the Tzimtzum. The light is not, but the source is, the Maor is, because it's not shayach to apply Tzimtzum in Atzmus. First of all, there's no shinu in Atzmus, no change. And second, the Atmos is not shayach to revealed and concealed. It's beyond that. And therefore you have to say that even before the world was created, there was a light. In addition to the Atmos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of God Himself, and about this light, they say that it is Or Ein Sof, it is an infinite light, Me'ein HaMa'or, it resembles and reflects and identical to the source, to the luminary, as will be explained, as we are going to learn in details.
That means that before the world was created, the Abishter created a light. So first the Abishter created light and then the
Well,
world.
first of all, you're using the word created. You have to be careful with that because we learned last time, I don't know if you were here, that the way the light is revealed from the source is Gilui Retzoni or Retzonis, as the Rebbe describes it. That on one hand, it's not that it's not that Atzmut, God had to create the light. Like the sun doesn't have to create light, the light comes out mimele. But when it comes to the sun has to shine. It's almost like the truth of the light of the sun is as truthful as the sun itself. But when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he is not mukhrach, he is not compelled to shine. And in any time he wants to stop the light from shining, he can. But practically, lemaise, this light was always there. So it is a gilui, which means a gilui mimele, a gilui in which the source does not have to be invested. And at the same time, this gilui retzoni, it is a choice. It's a chosen gilui. It's not, it's with Hashem's permission that there is light.
Before the existence of worlds, there came a prior revelation.
Yes, of godliness, of, of God's relatedness to anything other than himself, so to speak. As we said, according to the Hadran of the Rebbe on the Rambam, that Atzmus is bilti metzius nimtza. Atzmus is, if we call it reality, that we cannot even use that term, is bilti nimtza, meaning it's non-existential. And how did we define existence? Existence we defined vis-a-vis non-existence. That what makes something exist is that it is the opposite of not existing. And really the nature of everything is not to exist. But now this and that exist. Hashem was always there. So he is non-existential. His metzius is not existential, is not in the category of metzius nimtza, of metzius of something that has its own beginning. And therefore he cannot relate, if you could say that there's no relation at all, no comparability at all between Atzmus and between worlds, between bilti metzius nimtza, non-existential truth, and between existential reality. The gap is impossible to bridge, and therefore there is Or Ein Sof. Or Ein Sof is metzius nimtza. It's infinite. It was always there, but because it has a beginning, not in time, but in level, in cause, in causation. It is Or, and every Or is a Ma'or, is a beginning, is a source. That makes it metzius nimtza, an existential reality. Now we can talk about relationship with worlds, beginning with creating worlds, and even before that, beginning with alos haratzon, with creating a ratzon, a will, a desire for worlds. And then tzimtzum, and then kav, and then worlds. Adam Kadmon and worlds. I want to say, add a little bit of explanation of Rabbi Gopin here, that he said that of course, this proof that the Tzimtzum was in the light and not the Or and not in the Ma'or. Of course, you cannot say that the Tzimtzum happened in the Ma'or and the Atzmos. That obligates to say that Ein Sof relates to Or, not the Atzmos of Hashem. That when the Arizal says that the Tzimtzum happened in Ein Sof, it doesn't mean Atzmos, it means the Or. So it's not really a question on the Ramak because it's only the Arizal, as I said before, that innovated the inyan of the Tzimtzum. And the Ramak, lo yada mi-inyan ha-Tzimtzum, as the Rabbeim say. The Ramak did not know the inyan of Tzimtzum. He came before. And he says, explained in Hasidus, that what does it mean? That the Shita of the Ramak is that the distance between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and creations is not Ein Aroch Amiti. Again, if you are listening, if you are concentrating, the way the Ramak views the relation between Atzmus and worlds, so the way the Ramak looks at things, the distance between HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself and the Nivraim is not a real Ein Aroch, is not a real incomparability, the way the Arizal innovated. The Arizal brought to our understanding and consciousness and awareness the term of the Ein Aroch distance between the Creator and the creation, the incomparability, the quantum infinite distance between one and another that is unbridgeable and necessitated the whole process, and therefore the Tzimtzum happened, but in the Or, not in the Mar, and so on and so forth. But the way the Ramak views the distance between the Creator and the creations is called Ein Aroch Yachasi, which means it's a relative kind of relation. It's Ein Aroch, yes, it's infinite, but it is an infinite that is bridgeable. There is a relation. It's not completely incomparable. That's not the view of the Ramak. And therefore, the process of creating the worlds, according to the Ramak, was in a manner of Ila and Alul, a gradual descent, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. The Arizal says no way, because the distance between Atzmos and worlds is unbridgeable, is Ein Aroch. And therefore there you need a Tzimtzum that creates a cut and a shift in this whole relationship that will make it possible. And you cannot just, after the Tzimtzum, says the Arizal, that resolves the incomparability between God and creation, then you can apply the system of Ila and Alul, of cause and effect, and gradually go down. But not when you are trying to bridge between the infinite itself and worlds. That requires a Tzimtzum. And that's the Tzimtzum Arishon. And therefore, says the Rebbe, it's not possible to say that Ein Sof is the Atzmus of Hashem. When the Arizal says that you have to have a Tzimtzum in Ein Sof. No, it's a Tzimtzum in Or Ein Sof, not in God. In God was never a Tzimtzum. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe says that the Atzmus is always Begilui. Here, the second reservation is the Rebbe is saying you cannot, the Ramak says you cannot say Ein Sof about anything but Atzmus. And therefore, when the Zohar says Or Ein Sof, he means Or Shel Ein Sof. The Rebbe says, well, it's not, you cannot say that. Because, meaning you cannot say that is nothing else that it can be called Ein Sof. Why? Because when the Arizal that came after you explained to us that in Ein Sof there had to be a Tzimtzum in order to enable worlds altogether to be even potentially created, you cannot say, so when the Arizal said that there had to be a Tzimtzum in the Ein Sof, you cannot say that it's a Tzimtzum in the essence, in Atzmus. There's no shino in Atzmus. You cannot metzamtzem Atzmus. You cannot conceal him. You cannot metzamtzem him anyhow. And therefore, says the Rebbe, the Tzimtzum is not in Atzmus, the Tzimtzum is in his light. And therefore, says the Rebbe to the Ramak, you do have to say that there is something else that is called Ein Sof, which is Or Ein Sof. The light is Ein Sof. How? Miriam says, Me'ein Amar. She's not here now, but she got that. We'll talk about it. And you all got it, Bezrat Hashem. So this is the second reservation. Besides the first was about the reservation about the Ramak is Lo Shalnisi. The second is you cannot say that there is no other Ein Sof but Atzmus, because how come the Arizal says, the Zohar says Or Ein Sof, so Ramak says, well, Or Shel Ein Sof, but not Or Ein Sof. And the Arizal says, no, it's Or Ein Sof, because you had to have a Tzimtzum. Because the relation between Atzmus and world is not relative, it's incomparable, and therefore there has to be a big Tzimtzum. Where does the Tzimtzum happen? Well, it cannot happen in Atzmus. Atzmus doesn't change, it's not subjected to Tzimtzumim altogether. So where was the Tzimtzum? Or Ein Sof. So there is something that is called Ein Sof, which is Or Ein Sof. The Or is Ein Sof. So that's the second reservation. Now comes the third reservation. That which many Kabbala books say, and Hasidus of course, that the creation happens yesh me'ayin. Somethingness from nothingness. So we have to understand what this ayin is. But right now, let's relate to that from the question of the Rebbe Rashab on the Ramak. How do you resolve this expression of all the Mekubalim that creation is yesh me'ayin? וכן, look inside, מה שכתוב בספרים, שהבריאה יש מאין. That the בריאה is יש מאין, וידוע הקושייה או הקשה, הלא ממך הכל. ממך הכל, the pasuk from you is everything, and certainly according to the Ramak, everything comes directly from you, nothing else can create. So if this is the case, that everything comes straight from Atzmus, the way the Ramak says, ve'echu me'ayin, how do you say yesh me'ayin, that everything that is created yesh from ayin, from nothingness? Is Atzmus called nothingness? How can you describe Atzmus as nothingness? If there's anything you can say, it's the ultimate existence. It's the ultimate yesh. How can you call it nothing? Yesh me'ayin. Ella, rather, you have to adopt the Shita of the Arizal and certainly Hasidus. Hatirutz hu, the answer to that is שאפילו מקור החיוס של כל העולמות נקרא עין. That means that when we are told that the entire Seder Ishtalshelus, all worlds, were created yesh me'ayin, it means yesh me'ayin, which means we are the yesh, and then we come from ayin. What is ayin? The source from where we are coming, right? Yesh we are coming yesh from ayin. Our source is ayin. So ela tirutzu. How can you say that we come from nothing if Atzmus creates everything? שאפילו מקור החיות של כל העולמות, that even the source of life of all worlds, נקרא עין, is not really עצמות, and you can call it עין. Why? And כלא חשיב ממש, and it's considered completely insignificant and incomparable. לגבי מהוסו ועצמוסו, in comparison to the essence, to עצמוס, to the essence of God, to him himself. So this additional proof that there has to be something else which is Ein Sof, and that is Or Ein Sof, besides עצמוס, and that is different from the Ramak's view, is this third proof is an additional proof that Ein Sof doesn't apply only to the עצמוס of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it does apply to the light. How? Because it's Me'ein HaMaor, because if it's bittul to the Maor, and it has, otherwise light would not have it. That's not now the discussion. But you can say, whereas the Ramak doesn't agree, Ein Sof on something else, and what is in this case something else? That is Or Ein Sof. So Or Ein Sof you can call Ayin, because Or Ein Sof that creates worlds, according to our Shita, the Shita of the Arizal and Hasidus, you can call that we are created from Or Ein Sof, that's Yesh Me'ayin. Why? Because you can call it Or Ein Sof Ayin in comparison to Atzmus. In comparison to Atzmus, Or Ein Sof is insignificant. Otherwise, he's challenging the Ramak. How can you call HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the source of world, according to the view, you are the only source of worlds, כי ממך הכל, how can you call him עין? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, עצמוס, is the yesh האמיתי. So Hasidus will resolve it, as I just said, that there is Or Ein Sof. And this, the creation of worlds, doesn't come directly from Atzmus, rather from Or Ein Sof. And this Ha'ara is called Ayin, because it's completely battled to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the extent that it has no metzius, no ego. It has no ego. Or Ein Sof, all that Or Ein Sof says is, look at my source. That's all that it is busy and obsessed with. It has no self-ego, no sense of its own metzius. And if it does, it only because of this bitul, it has the sense of metzius of its source. In any case, so therefore, if the Ramak says no, everything is created mimcha hakol, how can you call this Atzmus Ayin? Okay, summarizing so far. In addition, what the new questions on the Ramak today. In addition to the principal question about the Shita of the Ramak regarding Ani Havai Lo Shanisi, the Shinui, the change in HaKadosh Baruch Hu by the creating the world. This we learned last time. But this time we learn another 3 questions of the Ramak. The first one is that in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer it says, Ad shelo nivra olam hayahu ushmo levad. That before and until the world was created, there was only him and his name. And that means that there is another aspect in addition to him, Shmo. And this aspect is Kadmon, it's infinite and it's primordial. However, according to the Shita of the Ramak, no other aspect is primordial or infinite, the true infinity, except for Atmos. So they have a problem with Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, says the Rebbe Rashab to the Ramak. Second question. So that's Hu Shmo. That's the first one. Second question. It's explained in Eitz Chaim that the creation of world was through the process of the Tzimtzum. And according to the Shita of the Ramak, that says that there is no other aspect except for Atzmos of Hashem. You have to say that the Tzimtzum happened in Atzmos, in the Ma'or, not in the Or. And this is impossible because, as the Alter Rebbe explained in Torah Or, you cannot say Tzimtzum in Ma'or, in Atzmos, for many reasons. But number one is Ani Avai Lo Shanisi, so how can you create a change? Number two, it doesn't say it exactly the way I said it, but number two, the Atzmus is not subjected to Tzimtzumim. Tzimtzum is the end of Helem and Gilui and concealments and filterings. All this is not Shayach. He's not subjected to these realities also together. So, the Tzimtzum is a Shaila on the Ramak. If a Tzimtzum is needed, says the Rebbe Rashab to the Ramak, we cannot say Tzimtzum happened in Atzmos, because you say nothing else has the ability to create except for Atzmos. And the third is the creation of the world, Yesh Me'ain. And the meaning is, really, the resolution to that, what do you mean Yesh Me'ain? That something came to be out of nothingness? Why it's called nothing? Why the creator, according to the Ramak, Atzmus, is called nothing? It's because the answer, the Ramak, of course, the Ramak has to answer that. And the Perush that the Rebbe Rashab gives, according to the view of the Arizal and Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe, is the creation is not from Atzmus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but from Or Ein Sof, that is battle, that is completely nullified, like Ein Va'efes in comparison to Hashem or to the Atzmus. And according to the Ramak that says that creation is from Atzmus, it's not understood. What does it mean me'ain? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not Ein. We are approaching the end of this Maimar, and by that we will say goodbye to mostly to the Ramak and to the Mekubalim. We will conclude with the reservations of the Ramak. We will discuss more the Inyan of Soibev Kol Almin. Hasidus views it, and that will be, hopefully, we'll conclude the Maimar next week, Imut Hashem, and then we will focus on the Shita of the Arizal and the progression of the Alter Rebbe and Hasidus regarding Or Ein Sof. The Rebbe wants to explain to us the evolution of the understanding of the relationship between God and worlds as it progressed, and dissecting it, analyzing it, and presenting every view from its angle helps us to crystallize the understanding of the subject. Now that we are seeing all the all views, and really we have the, as the Rebbe called it before, the Da'as HaMachriya, the resolution to all these views is Hasidus. That means that it takes from each Shita, it takes what it can take from each Shita and puts it together from a new perspective. It's a whole resolution to that is based on the building up of Shita by Shita by Shita and resolving all the needs to be perfected and corrected and adjusted in every Shita in order for it to be really aligned completely with the full truth. So it helps us to see the whole process of the development of the consciousness of creation. And also to understand, as I said before, what a difference in case of the Mekubalim. The Shita of the Mekubalim has a problem that when we try to come closer to Hashem, and when we give ourselves over to Hashem, since Keser is the creator, or as I said before, all we can expect is to have an intimate relationship with Keser, but not with Atzmus. Because according to the Mekubalim, Atzmus, Bechlal, you cannot talk about him. Nothing to talk about. You know,
because
now
they don't have the bridge of Tzimtzum.
exactly. So that is a big geula to know that our relationship is not just with Keser, it is Atzmos itself. But it's through how is it made possible. According to the Ramak, there are difficulties as we see. But according to the Arizal, and that's because the Ramak didn't see the whole thing wasn't revealed to him the whole thing of yet the Tzimtzum and the incomparability and so on, and the Ilal and Alol not sufficient and so on. But now that we do understand, have this understanding, it resolves everything, and brings each shita, it brings the good of each shita, and it resolves what is lacking in each shita in a perfect way.
So does the Alter Rebbe expand on the Arizal?
Yes, you will see that.